All right, everybody, we're gonna get started and thanks for being here. If you haven't got any, there's lunch, there's something to drink. And we're welcoming the Farm Bureau. Welcome everyone online. We will go around the room and introduce ourselves first. And we'll start with our presenters and then we'll call out the people online. So Tom
Moore, the Stanislaus County staff.
Eric Heinrich, farmer and Stanislaus County Farm Bureau president.
Anna Janesi, Stanislaus County Farm Bureau. Katie Demo, Stanislaus County Farm Bureau.
Jason Conley, CEO of Modesto Gospel Mission. Jacob Goldberg, Senator on Highway Hills Office.
John Valines, also with the Modesto Gospel Mission and chair of the EDC.
Courtney Ligorio, commercial relationship manager with Upton Bank.
Which one do you feel like being today, Cecil?
Edgar Garcia, Housing and Urban Development for the City of Modesto. Michael Gaffney, PG&E and board member of the chamber.
Christine Schweiniger, Valley Builders Exchange and board member for the chamber.
Liz Rocha, membership coordinator at the chamber. I'm Trish Christensen, president and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce.
All right, Monica, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Monica Flynn, Economic Development Manager, Opportunity Stanislaus.
All right, Chris.
Chris Rickey, council member representing Modesto's District 3.
All right, Peggy.
Peggy O'Donnell, Mid Valley Promotions and Chamber Board Member.
Keenan.
Keenan Craig, CEO for Second Harvest of the Greater Valley.
All right, thanks. And then Gavin.
Hey, Gavin Klein, Congressman DeWarte's office, and apologize, I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera, unfortunately.
All right, no problem. So before we get to the presenters, we do have minutes from last meeting. That was our April meeting with Workforce Stanislaus Workforce Development. Yes, sir. All right, Cecil moves to approve. Any second?
I second it.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, unanimously passed. Thank you. All right, so Katie, take it away.
Well, what's best? Do you want me up here?
You don't want to do report outs?
What was that?
Never mind.
Oh, yeah, probably up there is good
Yeah, actually, Katie,
in front of the water.
keep coming.
This way?
Yeah, right in there. Then you're talking to the mic and the camera here.
Hello.
Let me get your,
Okay, so I'm Katie Demo. I'm an executive director at Stanislaus County Farm Bureau. My other life is my husband and I own and operate Aspen Meadow Pack Station. So we live in Pinecrest all summer long and take people on horseback rides all the way to like extended wilderness vacations, horses and mules. So on my little bit of background, but today we're going to talk a little bit about Farm Bureau. So I'm going to kind of get started, who we are, what we do, how we started, how it's going, and then we're going to have. Pick up my next slide for me.
sure.
I put my little agenda up. Then we're gonna go to Anna Janesi. She is our Education and Communications Director, and she's gonna talk a little bit about our partnership and what we're doing with workforce development. We'll go to a regulatory update. Tom Orvis, our Governmental Affairs Director, kind of go through some current bills, some of the things that we're working on, just sort of from our perspective, some of the things that we're watching and keeping up pulse on. And then at the end, we'll have Eric Heinrich come up and kind of give the grower perspective on our ag economy and what's happening here in Stanislaus County, just so you kind of have a little overview of where we're going today. But about Stanislaus County Farm Bureau. So we're a grassroots organization and we're here to protect and promote agriculture in Stanislaus County. We're part of a federation structure, so we belong to the California Farm Bureau, and California Farm Bureau belongs to the American Farm Bureau. So we have representation local, state, and federal levels. So we work on everything from, advocacy work with elected officials all the way to kind of a regulatory agencies and some of the things that come down to affect agriculture. Kind of the beginning, we came into existence in 1914. So we've been around for a while here. Kind of the end of World War II, economy was doing great, but ag was facing a lot of issues. We weren't able to have, farmers were having a hard time with financing for implements and things that they needed on their farm, kind of communications. was just lacking. And so ag was struggling in this booming economy. So Congress passed an act in 1914 that would kind of create the cooperative extension program that we have today. And that really meant that California, or for us in California, that they had to have a land grant university, but we already had that set up. So with that set up, the act kind of put into place this idea that they could appoint farm advisors that could help distribute that information out to farmers, but there needed to be an organization in place that had membership of approximately 20% of the farmers in the county. And so in 1914, we were one of the first counties in California to establish a county farm bureau. Following 1919, American Farm Bureau and California Farm Bureau were, also created, and that kind of created our full system. But in the early days, this is just the coolest picture ever. So any opportunity to use it, I tend to use it. In the early days, Farm Bureau meetings were held. UC Cooperative Extension came in, and they brought in other people, other speakers, other, I don't know, whoever they could come up with, they could help distribute that information out to our farmers and ranchers, so that they could get financing for things like seed or implements, or work together to, create more, whatever, thriving farms in California and agriculture. Farm Bureau meetings today look very similar. We had one last night, so we're all a little tired. Sorry about that. But some of the things that we have today is UC Cooperative Extension is still on our agenda. We have Sheriff's Department, Irrigation District, legislators, all the way Congress, Senate, Assembly, local positions. So it's pretty normal for us to get updates from all of those people. And we often feature presentations from ag-related industries. So last night we also had a presentation from Nationwide, which is one of our partners. So still very much working on connecting our industry, connecting the people within our industry, bringing resources and things available to all of our farmers and ranchers in Stanislaus County. So our mission simply is protect, promote, educate, and advocate. So we are here to protect agriculture, make sure it's a viable industry for years to come, promote to bring forward the great things that our farmers and ranchers are doing right here in Stanislaus County. Educate, we do this by helping to make sure our growers have all of the things that they need for their continuing education and the things, to comply, all the things that are happening in agriculture. So that's one of our focus, and also to educate general public and youth about agriculture and where their food comes from. And advocate, this is probably the thing that's most near and dear to all of our hearts, is being there when new regulations come up or bills and such that are going to affect agriculture. So we work really, really hard on our advocacy piece. At Stanislaus, at all three levels of the Farm Bureau. We have the most phenomenal team on earth. So this is all of us in the office, but we have great expertise from everything from pesticides to regulatory. We are very well connected. Tom Orvis might be the single most connected human on the face of the planet. So we're lucky. We are lucky beyond lucky. But we have a vast staff and we cover, everything. So one of the other components in our office is we help run the irrigated lands regulatory program for a 5-county region. And that helps farmers and ranchers comply with water quality objectives. And so super talented team at the Farm Bureau. So if you ever want to stop by, come see us. Our members, we've got about 1,600 ag members here in Stanislaus County, around 30,000 in California, and about 6 million nationwide. So a pretty good network of farmers and ranchers and dairymen, and we're pretty proud of that. Programs, we kind of do everything. Sorry, this is like blazing fast, everybody. But young farmers,
plenty of time.
Okay. Young farmers and ranchers. This is one of our really important programs, and we love it. So it brings in people 18 to 35 to kind of get. It's like the next step. If you think of like you go through 4-H and you're coming into FFA, and then you get into college, maybe you do the Young Farmers Program at NJC, or are in a club at your whatever college or university you're at. After that, where do you go? How do you get involved? Well, that's what we're here for at Farm Bureau. So we have our Young Farmers and Ranchers program. Again, focuses from 18 to 35. We host an event once a month, once every other month, and we try to alternate between something super fun and then something that's super educational. So we've done stuff with like American Ag Credit, doing like a financing 101, or how to set yourself up to own or lease your own farm and ranch someday, or you know, I don't know, we could kind of cover a whole bunch of topics there, but more educational, which tend to be huge turnouts. The Insurance 101, we're like, ooh, are we gonna have a crowd? And you have a huge crowd because people need the information, so it's a great opportunity for people to get those. Oh, I'm sorry, did you go back for me? We do scholarships, we do a lot of scholarships through MJC, and then our Young Farmers and Ranchers also offer a high school scholarship. Ag Adventure Day, this is one of our education programs, and we're pretty proud of this because we bring about 1,200 third graders from Sherlock Unified School District into the fairgrounds, and they get their first hands-on, some of them, it's their very first hands-on experience in ag, so it's that you get and see, you know, calves and stuff, and there's many donkeys, so that's a win. But it's a great day. Spray safe and trainings. Anna is just extremely well versed in all things pesticides and compliance, and so growers have a certain amount of continuing education hours that they have to complete every year to maintain their licenses to use any sort of chemical on their farms. So we offer endless training courses. And this is everything from our spray safe, which is around 500 people. We pack MJC Pavilion, and we have simultaneous English and Spanish, and we have both grower, you know, training and continuing education and classes for our any farm workers or anybody employees of those farms and ranches, so that they also get the required safety trainings. It's a super great day, a fun day. And then, yeah, trainings throughout the year, and these cover everything from, you know, basic compliance and needs like sexual harassment prevention, heat illness, hazmat, I think this Friday, all the way to the, you know, in-depth classes that provide that continuing education. Adopted Family is one of our little community service outreach projects, and we adopt 7 families through Stanislaus County and provide them with everything on their want and wish list for Christmas. And you should mark your calendars right now because we're going to be doing a night out with the Modesto Nuts. We always do it the end of July, to be July 27th this year, and we would love to have you guys if that works in your calendar. My next slide. Thanks, Trish. Advocacy. Again, this is like our heart and soul, our you know what we do. But we've done things from rallies at the Capitol, the pictures from the water rally that was in 2020, meetings with elected officials, just general correspondence. We do an endorsement night. Tom will cover a little bit more of that, but we also do local endorsements. Actually, I didn't update this, but we do meetings in Sacramento. So on the we met with every elected official in the Assembly and Senate in March. Farm Bureau members did to talk about ag issues. I think all 4 of our boots on the ground staff have all done Washington DC trips to talk about agriculture and specifically issues here in Stanislaus County. We write comment letters like it's going home style. So if you ever need one, that's us. And if it's going to impact our members, we're really focused on it. So these are some of the ways we advocate, some of the different things we do, but we're also going to be hosting a tour for DPR, Pesticide Regulation, coming up. Their directors coming out. So we try to have those opportunities to get people that maybe don't have the ag experience, get actual, you know, boots on the ground, come see farms and ranches, talk to our people, see the great things that are happening. Agriculture matters to all of us, and we've talked about these things, but our top 10 commodities, almonds, milk, poultry, cattle, and calves, this is all the stuff that you see in Stanislaus County, and it makes up for a huge part of the economy here in Stanislaus County. So let's scroll to my next page. Kind of cool. A couple of years ago, you guys may have gotten a presentation on this at some point too, but our ag commissioner actually went through and did a full economic impact report of how agriculture in Stanislaus County affects Stanislaus County. So what he found is 1 in 8 are direct. 1 in 8 people are employed people in Stanislaus County are directly involved in agriculture, which is a pretty big number. Our economic output is huge. It's, you know, pretty big part of our county's total. It's a big industry, and it's an important industry here in Stanislaus County. And future, where are we going? We're working on our 501c3. We're officially chugging down our path for a 501c5, so we do political endorsement. But we are working on, you know, kind of an education sidearm Anna has been fantastic at coordinating podcasts, so we're featured at least monthly on the AgNet West podcast, talk about things right here at home, more scholarships. We're working on some new benefits for non-ag members, so if you ever wanted to become involved, you're not involved, reach out. We would be happy to talk to you about some of the things that we are doing that will be beneficial to everybody. We're doing more trainings, more partnership. Anna's gonna talk about workforce development and a whole bunch more. I don't know, we're always busy, we're always up to something fun, trying new things and trying really hard to represent our industry right here at home. So with that,
Quick question.
Yeah.
You have a 501c and you're working on a C5 or vice versa?
we're a 501c5, we're working on a 501c.
I just landed our C3. It's a process.
Yeah, yeah, so we're down the town.
It's a process.
Well, we just officially approved all of our structure and our initial kind of mission statement, the things that are gonna be in our 501c3, and we'll be starting work with Ross Lee to put it all into.
That's who I did.
It's our
too.
board has to approve.
Yeah.
Our Farm Bureau board.
You have to come up with articles and then bylaws and then mission statement and then vision. There's all these documents, legal documents.
Yeah. We might call on you. Yeah, we might tap on you if we have some questions. We will, we're not shy.
Honestly, I didn't know.
Well, we're hoping that hopefully our process will go fairly smooth. We kind of did the legwork to have,
Maybe it was because you were already involved.
yeah.
No,
Board. probably.
it's completely separate whether or not,
Yeah.
it's just, we did all the,
I know, I know.
It went smooth. Cool.
Have you received- has your designation come back yet?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. In fact, I just got a letter that she got, that they actually changed my address from here to the event.
So there's a difference when you file and they tell you they've accepted your process. It can take up to 18 months to get your designation. So you're probably still in pending mode and don't know it.
Well, we'll call it, maybe you could pull some of those strings for us too. But anyway, so we're super excited about that, and that's gonna have some work on education grants, some more work with workforce development, and yeah, so we're just around the corner. We're on the corner of 12th and L, so if you're willing to visit, we're always happy to have visitors, and thank you for having us. I'll turn it over to Ms. Anna.
So as Katie mentioned, I joined the Farm Bureau team about 4 years ago now. Prior to that, most of my tenure has been in like ag compliance. So I worked for AgSafe, and before that, I actually worked for Stanislaus County for the Ag Commissioner's Office. So I was a pesticide cop. And I decided that I like it when people want to talk to me and not run away from me. So this is a much better fit. Now I get to use that experience and background to actually help our members with compliance pieces. So I tackle, if it's education, in the realm of education, it's typically lands on my desk. Or if it's communication, it falls on my desk. So we still do a newspaper twice a month, old school, printing press, all of that. We have contributing writers. I do some writing for it. We have a fantastic advertising guy in-house who helps us. We're probably one of the few farm bureaus that actually makes money on their newspaper through advertising. So pretty proud of that. But about a year ago, Workforce Development, Stanislaus County Workforce Development came to Farm Bureau and said, hey, we want to endeavor with this sector partnerships is what they called it. And I see that they were just here your last meeting. Did they talk about this? The sector partnership?
She touched on a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had a meeting with Doris and Chris, who is kind of managing that, and said, hey, we've got this chunk of money. It's ear tagged for agriculture. We don't have a way to connect with people in ag. And their ask was, hey, Farm Bureau, can we use you and your connections and your relationship with our local farmers, ranchers, and dairymen and get these funds to the people who need it. And so the whole purpose is to provide upskilling opportunities for folks who are working in the ag industry here in Stanislaus County. They've got really great established programs, just maybe not great communication to the people who can take advantage of them, right? So we are 1 year into the program. We're literally working on our year 2 contract right now. But this picture here is our very first meeting. So we sat down as a Farm Bureau staff and brainstormed, who are the movers and shakers amongst our ag community that would be forward thinking and would frankly put up with the paperwork that it takes to do a program with the county. And we got them in the room. So what you're seeing in this photo here is a really great cross section of our industry. So we have everybody from dairymen to semen sales, pesticide dealers, almond growers, you name it, it was represented in this room. And the first meeting, there we go. So our fall meeting, we really focused on heartburn. That's my little, what is a struggle for you? So we had folks break up into groups based on what area of the industry they represented. We were hoping we can find some common themes. And we did some kind of workshop-y exercises. And basically what came out of that was, here's where we're struggling. We've got frontline supervisors who were really great widget makers, right? And now I've promoted them to be the supervisor of the widget makers, but I didn't arm them with any supervisory skills, right? And now as an employer, I'm like scratching my head as to why they're not excelling because they were a great widget maker. So that was a huge take home for us that first meeting. Computer skills, right? There's a lot of like database stuff, regardless of the ag sector that you're working in, where they're taking information from the field and uploading it into some database, and then they're making management decisions based on that. So this disconnect between the person using the tablet in the field and what information needs to be captured so that, management team can make those decisions. English literacy, and this goes both ways. What we heard from our folks in the room was there are just as many English speakers asking to learn ag-based Spanish as there are Spanish speakers asking to learn English with an emphasis in ag vocabulary. So what can we do with that, right? Customer service, large conversation around newbies coming into the workforce and having no customer service skills, not knowing how to answer the phone appropriately. Emails are sent kind of in a text message fashion. Sorry, this is probably your age range. Picking on you a little bit. I have an 18-year-old who's literally going off to MJC as we speak, and I could see this in him as well. And then for the decision makers, keeping their target on compliance. So as Katie mentioned, we play a lot in the advocacy field. That goalpost is always changing for us. California is frankly not a very ag-friendly state, right? So we are constantly fighting bills and new legislation that makes it harder for people like Eric to do his job. And sometimes folks aren't in compliance because they just didn't know that things changed. So we take that pretty seriously. And then this other bucket was kind of soft skills. But these were really the take-home themes. So deliverables. So I, in all honesty, like Doris and I had a really heated conversation after that first meeting, because I said to her, you just presented to my people, right? My industry that I have invited here on behalf of Farm Bureau, that you've got money to spend on this. We need to do something quickly, or they're not going to show up the next time I ask them to be here. And so she was able to kind of go back to the drawing board, look at where they could pull funds from, and rather quickly, we put together this agricultural specific supervisor development academy. So AgSafe, which is, right here in town, they do amazing work, compliance and training, all agricultural specific. And we brought them in, and starting in April of this year, we put 2 cohorts together, 20 people in English, 20 people in Spanish. Angelina Ceja, who's their director of education, I think she's VP of education now actually, comes in and spends 4 hours with these groups for a total of 5 sessions. And these folks will actually graduate next week, next Thursday. So if they showed up to every class, did the homework, participated, they will earn a certificate of completion that is recognized by the industry. And we're gonna make a big deal about it. We're gonna have a graduation ceremony. We're gonna do video testimonials. We're gonna host a lunch. We've told participants if there's somebody in their office who like sponsored them to do the class, that they can come and celebrate them as well. It's been a really cool thing. So Angelina's obviously teaching it, but I pop in pretty regular just to see how things are going. And I think there's as much value as the curriculum that they're getting as there is about that group of folks sitting in the room who are now having an opportunity to talk about like, oh, that's how you do it there. Well, at my job, we do this, or I had that struggle too. Let me tell you how I worked through it. So there's this really great like conversation going on because there's probably about 15 companies represented in each one of those cohorts. So I'm looking forward to those folks graduating next week. And then the goal right now is to offer the same program twice a year moving forward, as long as there's a need and a desire for it. So spring, this time we,
I happen to be the vice chair.
okay,
And when this was initially presented to us, it was different because typically what we would do, we have about $30 million a year that we fund different training programs in that. And typically it would be for one particular company that has a specific target
yeah,
need for employment. Because you have so many employees in the county. And the other thing that we want to do is we don't want to just fund you to train somebody for a particular job, but we really like to have people that already have a job that can advance
Yes.
and make more money. Okay, and so you're covering a lot of things, and that was a little bit difficult for us to move through how we do it.
yes,
But you're right, Doris is an executive.
Yeah.
director, and she is very creative in that. And so this has been a major departure for how we fund things, but it's also really, we think beneficial long term. And it comes back to the 2030 vision. Too. So anyway, you guys are doing a good job.
thank you. Yeah, Doris is affectionately referred to as her guinea pig, right? Because I think, to your point, what they envisioned was Heinrich Farms coming to the table and saying, I need 10 people upskilled to learn how to use an almond sorting machine, right? And I think traditionally that's what Workforce had done in the past.
Right.
But what we heard from that sector group in that very first meeting was that's maybe not always exactly what's needed. And so this idea of what I refer to as like a community training, right, where there's multiple companies represented in the room was not the cookie cutter program that Workforce had done in the past. So Doris and Chris Hancock, who we've been working with really closely, went back to the drawing board and figured out how we could get the funding. Because what I didn't mention, that supervisor development program typically runs about $400 a person. We were able to offer it at $85. And frankly, we probably could have done it for free, but I felt really strongly about the employer having some skin in the game to ensure that the employee got there. That they were really being thoughtful about blocking that time out to make sure that the employee could come. Yes. Yes. So all those layers.
And so you have to navigate through
Yeah.
all of those. And this type of training is a game changer. Because it isn't just taking somebody out the street and trying to get them a job at $15 an hour. So it's much broader than that. And I think this is going to change. This, I'm going to call it an experiment. This is going to change
We like getting,
the way we do our business.
Good. Well, thank you for that feedback. It's really, I was mentioning earlier, it has been a win-win for us. I mean, it's an opportunity for, Farm Bureau is being paid by Workforce Development for our time in executing this. I'm getting needed training to my members, and Workforce Development is fulfilling their mission. So it's been a really great fit. So we had that group that met in the fall, we invited them to come back this spring, and this time I said, okay, I don't want to hear one complaint, we're not talking about heartaches and headaches, we're gonna talk about solutions. And this time we shook up the groups, we didn't keep them in their little industry cohorts. And we did some I'm kind of a training nerd, so I like it when I make you do things maybe out of your comfort zone. And we got people to really have some thoughtful conversations. What I gave them was, here were the takeaways from the first meeting in terms of like, what's a challenge? You, workforce development folks, are going to talk about how can we find a solution? Because it's supposed to be industry led, right? It can't be Anna saying, here's what I think what you need. They need to say to us, this is what we need. And then we work with workforce development to get it for them. So broke folks up into 4 groups again. We focused on computer skills, certifications, customer service, including teamwork, and then English and Spanish literacy. And then really the takeaways here, database training in Excel. That was huge in that group. Here we want agricultural specific onboarding training. Anecdotally, we had a grower in the room say, I am the supervisor. I have 10 people working for me. I bring somebody new on. I'm spending 8 hours with that individual going through all of the required paperwork and onboarding training before I can even send them out in the field to do the real training, right? In the meantime, my 9 other employees have no supervisor, right? There's nobody for them to check in with. And so what she asked is there any way that workforce development could do something with this? So we had a conversation with Doris about maybe building out some modules that are compliant, that are ag specific, that could be proctored at one of the satellite offices that workforce development has across the county. So this grower could theoretically say, I hired you, I could send you for the day to go spend a day with workforce development. You come back to me with a certificate that's got all these check marks that demonstrates that you've gone through these required trainings. The green group, they talked about continuing the supervisor development program, and then maybe a check-in for those that have completed it. Is there a part 2? Do we follow with those folks in 6 months and say, have you used those skills? Do we talk to their employer and say, have you seen a change? Did any of those folks, after doing that training and demonstrating those skills, was there a promotion? Was there a change in pay? And then last but not least, the English and Spanish literacy, ag specific. Really, like I said before, we've got folks in both buckets asking to learn the other language, but having it be agricultural vocabulary. So that was our solutions. And then, so
I
next
think,
steps.
Anna, I was just
Yes,
gonna
sir.
say, looking at that list, I think it's funny. We're at a conference on homelessness and rescue missions in Orlando. And like at the mission, like we have those same problems.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I am probably sure Christine and, others have it, and other employees and associations have these same exact problems with how do you use Excel? How do you do databases? How do you, all that stuff,
I think the key, having spent several years now training adults, is you need the what's in it for me, right? So I can do an Excel class, but if you can't relate to how it implements to your job, your industry, then you're not going to retain it, right? So it's not so much that Excel trainings don't exist out there, but I need an Excel training that means something to a farm worker.
Yeah.
Right? That they can take and apply to, oh, I work for a Tory nursery, and it makes sense to me that when I walk a line, I do 7 tick marks for trees that look sick. There needs to be that connection.
Yeah. Or Jason and I did a Excel, 2-day workshop one time, 2 or 3 day workshop, right? Local hotel. And they said, don't bring your computers. We're just going to lecture. And it's like, that was so unhelpful. Like I remember maybe 1 keystroke shortcut out of 2 days because we weren't working at it. Yeah. And we weren't working. It was just, so completely ineffective.
Let's workshop it. I want you to get up and move and write things out on chart paper with markers, and you just sitting here and listening to a trainer lab, it's not helpful.
Yeah.
So next steps, we've had an opportunity to talk. So we have a couple chairmen in our group. Chris Hancock and I have Oh, Carrie's on. She's part of the group.
She joined in.
Carrie actually spoke at our last meeting because she has utilized some of the traditional workforce development programs, and she was able to give some like testimonial as to how it was helpful for their business. So that was cool. So next year, what are we doing? We are in discussion right now for a contract for year 2. These are our goals. We hope to grow the group, right? Our sector group that meets twice a year. We want to increase the number of people participating in that. Obviously, our folks from the supervisor development class, they will be graduating next week. We will capture testimonials. I would love to use that in marketing moving forward so we can continue to offer that class. This year, this is new, so we're going to create 2 subsectors. So after the last meeting with our cohort, we learned that there's some like really low-hanging fruit, frankly. So pesticide dealers and almond or nut pullers and processors. So not to get into the weeds, no pun intended, but pesticide dealers will employ what they call field scouts. And so these are folks that have a lot of like agronomy and plant science credits, but in order for them to promote to a pest control advisor, where they're literally writing like the prescription for the pesticide, they have to pass a series of tests with the Department of Pesticide Regulation. And of course, that test is like taking the DMV test. It's terrible. I've taken a version of it before. And so Stanislaus Farm Supply has 3 employees right now who are employed as field scouts. They've met all the educational requirements to be eligible to take the PCA exam, but they haven't been successful at the exam. So what we're piloting with them is workforce development is paying for them to go to a test prep course. They're going to pay for the exam. And then once those individuals take the exam successfully and promote into that PCA role, workforce development has an existing program in which they will pay for a portion of their salary for the first 6 months while they're training to do that job. So we're piloting that with 3 people at Stanislaus Farm Supply. My hope is if that is successful, we can replicate that. And there are probably 15 dealers just in our county. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then the other subsector that we're going to take a look at is almond pullers and processors. What quickly comes to mind is like forklift drivers. And Chris Hancock and I have had a conversation about, it can't just be certifications, right? It's got to be like upward movement. But driving a forklift in a busy processing plant is very different than just driving a forklift in a warehouse, right? So there are some opportunities there. So we're still kind of chewing on that one and figuring out how that looks. We've already built out the required training checklist in hopes that we can put together those modules that I spoke about earlier. And then based on interest and need to continue offering supervisor development, ag specific 1 to 2 times a year. And again, that's offered in both English and Spanish. And we have some questions online.
Yep.
So Craig, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? I forgot you, and Carrie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Kim.
Mary came on. Yes.
I'm Carrie Santos, and I'm on the board of the Modesto Chamber, and I'm also part of the cohort. Ann and I go way back.
Great. And then Craig, are you there?
You're not muted, Craig, but you don't have a camera.
Well, we'll just get to his questions.
So are you guys engaged with Stanislaus 2030 and the biofuel stuff?
No.
We've been in some presentations and heard about it, but we're not on the committee or anything.
There's more coming on that. I do sit on that, and biofuel is a big thing coming up, and that bioeconomy is coming up. And I'll talk about our sustainability event in a bit. We'll hear about a little bit of those programs.
So the question is, has any of your group met with the board of supervisors on the 2030 plan? The biggest single thing in the 2030 plan is changing as we go forward jobs, the economic, type jobs, and it's in the bio industry, which is connected to the farm. And I made that statement earlier, us partnering with you guys for the training fits into our.
Kind of where it's going.
You should contact county and have them make a presentation to you on the 2030 plan. Because it really buttonholes into your industry. Go forward and recognizes the ag industry as a continuing job producing element for us.
I think ag and infrastructure were the two that they left out
Right.
on that 2030.
This is Greg, and I would strongly endorse what Cecil has just said in regards to your involvement in Stanislaus 2030 and the biofuel. It's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about ag. And the basis of our community is ag products that is going to be part of the future. And I would encourage the involvement of the Farm Bureau very much, which bring me to two other questions, if you don't mind me asking. And that is the ag acreage base growing over the last 5 to 10 years, or is it subtracting? Is it lower now than what it was, or is it more? Are there more acres going into production? And then lastly, and I'll be quiet, is what's your involvement in the Modesto General Plan update?
Well, the first question I would argue, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we are doing more with less. And if anybody wants to speak to that, I mean, I don't think we're adding acres. I think we're being more efficient with the acres that we have.
And what you've seen, Craig, this is Tom Orvis. What you've seen is, of course, conversion in the hills. So you've seen a conversion from rangeland into permanent crops.
Yeah.
And of course, with the advent of SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and many of those things, you're well versed here. I think Janice Keating was just here your last speaker. So the what we call the river, our great sustainable SED on the rivers. You're seeing a perfect storm between SGMA and the SED. SED says we want to take 40% of your inflow into New Don Pedro or Maloney's, and we're going to go ahead and flush that down the river. At the same time, in their EIR, they say, oh, by the way, we're going to create a problem for you, but it's significant and unavoidable that we're going to increase groundwater pumping by 25%. Fast forward to SGMA, and SGMA says, well, no, you're not. So you have this perfect storm. And now you have, and that's part of what I was going to lead into, is you have these 3 water rights bills. Not only have I worked for Farm Bureau, I'll just take it from here. Do you want to?
I think I'm done. So
Yeah.
you're good.
So I sat on the board from 1996, Stanislaus County Farm Bureau board from 1996 to 2008. And I've been on staff since 2008. And I deal with air, water, land, and species. We've all had our land use. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't agree. And going to your deal, as far as speaking about the GP, we have just been kind of made aware that Modesto is getting ready to do that again. We also have, talking to LAFCO, we know that there's going to be some changes in northern Patterson. And of course, Riverbank, western Riverbank, and along the river, those are all starting to come into play. Myself, I sat on the Oakville City Planning Commission for 10 years. And I was on the County Planning Commission for 3 years. And so I've got an understanding of that, of land use. And again, we don't always agree. Our job is to protect agriculture and to make sure agriculture is a viable industry in this county for multiple generations. Not just us, but for our kids and our grandkids. Now, where do you find that intersection where it's a happy medium for all involved? Those are things we have those conversations about. But my other background is in water. I'm also the board president of Deal Irrigation District. So I wear many hats, sometimes maybe too many hats, but that's what I do. I'm going to focus on 3 bills in the state right now. And I don't know if Dana Ferreira is in here from MID, and Janice probably talked about. They would fundamentally change the water rights system in California. In California, we talk about pre-14s, which are Oakdale, Turlock, South San Joaquin, and Modesto. We have water rights that predate 1914. 1914 is when they created our water rights system in California. PG&E has some of those water rights too on their, on their systems and hydro up on the rivers. And then you have the post-14s. And where we get into a little battle, and I'll just say the Stanislaus River, because the Stanislaus River is very different from the Tuolumne. The Stanislaus River, Oakdale, and South San Joaquin have what we call adjudicated. So they've been through the court system. They've gone another step up and adjudicated through the court system on the water rights on the Stanislaus. So we have the first 600,000 acre feet of water that flows into the New Melones. Now this year, almost 1.8 million, 1.7 million acre feet are coming in, and we don't know where it's going to end. I think it's going to end up farther down. Whereas on the Tuolumne, Modesto, Turlock, and of course San Francisco share on that river. Now these water rights are our mountain to die on. Okay, we often say, "What are you guys willing to go to the mat on?" This is where we're willing to go to the mat. Expend every resource we have and go to it, because not only is it going to affect our members, our farmers, but where's the water, drinking water from the city of Modesto come from? Remember, the city of Modesto used to be 100% groundwater pumping. Then somebody had the foresight to build that water treatment plant. And when you took that water treatment plant and started producing water for people, industry, food, guess what? Your wells came back up, right? Very quickly. So here's this balance between groundwater and surface water. Now, you take away those water rights and then you impose a 20 or 40% unimpaired flow. Those water rights are gone. Now you're starting to say, where do we get this from? Because it's a whole different ballgame. Those bills, we call them the dirty three, or at least I call them 33. In the assembly, AB 460, AB 1337, and SB 389. They've all changed houses. They all passed, they made their bare thresholds of 3 or 4 votes that they needed to get out of their house and got into the other house. Interestingly, there's a lot of people, and I'm going to say a lot of people, because usually the Republican side, which is definitely the minority side in both houses, voted against them. But a lot of Democrats, I think, started to think about their constituents and their industry and their businesses and the people and how would it affect the water supply is to their people. Right now, we're going to continue to fight it. I'm sure you've been lobbied to write letters against it. You probably already have. We appreciate that from the water side. But then we got to continue that fight, because right now we all know what the political climate is up there. To me, anything goes. And I get back to that. Everybody goes, we need term limits. Well, guess what? We've got the system we have now. I miss Willie Brown, because Willie Brown was a Democrat who was put into power by the Republicans. And those people that stayed up there had educated throughout their system and throughout their lifetime as to what needed to be done, and they actually worked across the aisle and together. Now, unfortunately, it's let me see. I just got elected today. I'm running for re-election. I got 2 years in the cycle. I got to start raising money tomorrow for my next election. And oh, by the way, I've only got a 6-year term or an 8-year term up here. And then I want to go on to the next house. And quite honestly, how much damage can I do while I'm here? That's Tom's opinion. It's not Farm Bureau's opinion. That's Tom's opinion. But at the same time, you lose that institutional knowledge. And it doesn't become how we work together for the betterment of the state, people. It's, I have to show that I did something for my constituents so that I can be reelected. And maybe, and I'm gonna point out freshman Senator Alvarado Gill, working across both sides of the aisle. There's very few. We're lucky in the valley to have people that understand the dynamic in the valley, work across both sides. You know, one of our former legislators was here, and you all know him, ran for the 13th congressional district, unsuccessfully, but we had a conversation about his desk mate. And he says, you know, I represent the valley, and my desk mate says, I agree with you. I agree with you. But if I vote with you, I lose the Sierra Club and all the people to put me in office. And so we've got to find a way to get back to what's best for us as constituents. And going on the federal side, this is Farm Bill time. Every 4 years we do a Farm Bill. Now everybody says, oh, Farm Bill, that's money for farmers. Well, 80% of that money goes to food stamps and WIC and all those other programs for food service. Not necessarily you'd say, oh, that farm makes farmers. No, California, you have to realize we don't get into the what we call program crops, corn, soybeans, the rice, a lot of those wheat. California, when we ask for money from the Farm Bill, we ask for money for research. We ask for money to make those foods. And look at the Almond Board of California, and many of our commodities have done great things with food nutrition and research. And then you look at the money as far as market access. This county exports to over 100 different countries in the world. You know, remember a few years ago was, well, we're exporting our water to China. I hate to tell you folks, the #1 destination for almonds in the state of California is the #2 producing country in the world of almonds, Spain. China's like #4, #5. Okay. And how many different forms do we send them? So a lot of those dollars can go into the research and product development that help. It's no good to grow it if you can't sell it. And I think that has to do with all of your business as well. It's no good to produce a product. You don't have somebody that's going to consume it and somebody that's going to use it. Katie talked about endorsements, and you can jump in. I know Craig, we met, it's been a few years ago, but those are the old battles. And I know you're talking about the GP coming back up, and undoubtedly, I'm just going to say right now, our president, Eric Heinrich, and our past president, Jake Winger, are all from Wood Colony. And so I just make sure everybody knows that, because Wood Colony has always been a central focus in a lot of things the city of Modesto likes to do. But we talk about endorsements, and I think it was years ago, Cecil, when you were CEO, I think someone said that you had done a kind of a survey. In Stanislaus County Farm Bureau, it's usually one of the hardest endorsements to get. We don't invite. If you want to be considered, and I say considered, because if you ask, you don't necessarily receive. If you want to be considered, you have to ask us. And our board, we go through it, and we like to bring them in and we like to talk to them. And you're going to say agriculture, oh, you're very conservative. You guys just support Republicans. We endorsed Senator Alvarado Gill. Okay, we've endorsed Adam Gray. Gary Condit. Let's go back and let's talk to the people that understand our industry and our people and how we do things here. Then our job becomes, when we work with them, continue to work. Remember, it's all about relationships. Remember one thing, very simple. All politics is local. Okay? It's all local. It starts right here at the grassroots effort. Stop there and starts with here to build those relationships. So I'm going to jump. Whoa,
You got about 2 minutes.
I'm going to give to my president. I'll be available for questions afterwards.
All right.
Eric Heinrich.
I'll be brief. I'm just gonna kind of give just a little bit of an update on kind of what's happening out there. I am a farmer. We grow almonds, walnuts, corn, alfalfa, hay, and various like crop beans, some beans, not this year. But, there's some challenges right now, and then there's some good things. So I'll just kind of go through some of the challenges. I don't really want to like make it a sob story, but there's always challenges. And this year we have some really unique challenges, particularly with walnuts. So we grow walnuts. We are in the wood colony. I farm with my dad and brothers, and we're in the wood colony. We have a walnut color dehydrator, and walnuts is one of our specialties that we grow. And walnuts is particularly hard hit right now on the marketability of walnuts. But we all know, or many of us know, that the health benefit of walnuts are wonderful. They have omega-3s. They're very healthy to eat. But as far as marketing to the world, there's lots of factors that are inhibiting the consumption and the marketing of walnuts. And one of them last year, we had about almost 14 days over 100 degrees hit us in September. And so it diminished our quality. And that was a pretty hard hit. Also, shipping has been a pretty major issue in walnuts. And then some of the tariffs, the retaliatory tariffs, particularly that India has, and they have 125% tariff on walnuts particularly. And so these types of things are really hurt it. We're looking at, in some cases, below the cost of production in walnuts right now. And that's hard. And so if you drive around the county, you probably noticed like, oh, they're taking that orchard out, they're taking that orchard. A lot of those are walnuts that are coming out. And I think some of the orchard removal companies, they're booked until almost next year. And so a lot of the more heirloom varieties are coming out. There's no margin, and in some cases below cost production. Almonds, we had some pretty rough weather during bloom this year. The bees weren't able to do their thing. They need about 60 degrees sunlight. We had cold and rainy weather, and so the crop is it's definitely down. There was the subjective estimate is at 2.5 billion, which sounds pretty high. I don't see that in our area. They're going a month from today, they come out with the objective estimate. That's where they actually count, and they have a scientific way of counting what's on the tree. And we'll see if it comes below that or above that. But and there's also quite a bit of carry out from, it looks like, from last year. So the price is pretty low in almonds right now. And the whole thing when it comes to the grower is we are price takers, not price setters. And a lot of other industries, they kind of, this is what it costs. This is our cost of doing business and service. This is what we're going to set the price. We don't. The market sets the price. And so that overall, as far as how will it affect our community, our area, it will affect it, and it is affecting it. I think it's affecting a lot of aspects from ag, and I think it may for quite some time, maybe certainly another year or two, and maybe longer. Bright spot, positive thing is water. We've got a lot of water, and that's really good. We got a full allotment. We're in the Modesto Irrigation District. We have a full allotment this year, and that's a really bright thing. We got to protect that water right, as Tom mentioned. Couple other bright spots: cherries, peaches. Those are really booming right now. There's just not as many peaches out there, and that's a bright spot. So it's neat to see some good things happening. But across the board with ag, it's particularly almonds and walnuts, which we have quite a few of. It's going to be a tough year or two, maybe longer. Yeah, and I think I'll stop right there. Any questions? We're all open for questions. If anybody has any questions.
Well, I have a comment, Eric.
Yeah.
I really think after the battles, sorry for me calling that, that we had years ago on the Wood Colony. I think there's a way to preserve Wood Colony and still build around the transportation corridors, which are necessary. And if we don't focus on 99, we can focus on the new 132. I just think there's a way to do that, and I would encourage the Farm Bureau, the chamber, and any interested parties in actually sitting down to try to resolve the differences and try to preserve those areas rather than try to have a turf war, if that makes sense. So just know that John has really helped. He's one of those people that he's a fan of the Heinrichs, and he's a fan of the chamber, and I think he really can play a pivotal role. Secondly, real quick, I'll just say I would encourage the Farm Bureau to get involved in the bio studies and Stanislaus 2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let me say something. Craig and I, a lot of you don't know this, but Craig and I both served as chairman of the board of this organization. I was president for a number of years afterwards. This came along. But the one thing that the chamber has always done, if we go back to the early 80s and that, is we've always been a partner with the Farm Bureau. We've always been a partner with the farmers. We've always absolutely supported water rights. I know I testified a number of times in Sacramento, with the group, with and without the Farm Bureau and that. And you got to fight to the last stop. Absolutely. You got to fight to the last stop. And I don't care what these damn politicians want. And as far as Wood Colony, and Tom, you brought it up. We never, as a chamber, advocated to take Wood Colony. We never did. And we were accused of doing that, but we never did. Okay? And I personally believe in property rights. I'll always believe in property rights and that. And we have to protect the farmers. And I think Craig would absolutely agree with that. Neither one of us are on the board anymore. You have to talk to all these you folks and that. We always want to pass along our history to them so that they understand at least, the history, and then they can make the decision going forward. In supporting political candidates and that. It's always been political candidates that we've gone across the board. Everybody said, well, you're Republicans, you're conservative and that. But we're just like you. Adam Gray, we always thought him and Condit, back. Whoever would do the best thing for all the constituents, for economic development. Chamber's always been about economic development, creating jobs and that. And you have to do that with partnerships. So
I appreciate that, Cecil. I mean, from a farmer's perspective, I think we are partners, whether we want to admit it or not. We're a part of the same community, and we have many of the same goals. Absolutely.
So if I could, I'll just interject there then. Our door's open. We appreciate you guys coming in here so much. We're here to partner, and as co-members of one another and supporters of one another, there's other things just in listening to your presentations, primarily through you two, that we could be partnering and supporting and promoting things that you have going on, and we're happy to help you guys do that. So maybe we should get together and say, where are we aligning already and overlapping that we don't know? I can also help connect you with the 2030. Beam Circular is going to be at our sustainability event. So I'm engaged and getting support from some of the entities that these gentlemen brought up. So I'm happy to help build that bridge with you. And before we wind up, because we are running a little tight here, I do want to take a moment to share this event that we are doing. This is our second annual. We are working really hard with sustainability efforts right now and certifying businesses of any industry countywide. We're the only program provider who has been given that program to support. We are doing our second annual sustainability event from the ground up. Oh, they didn't put the one up with all the logos. We have presentations underwater from MID and TID. We have power from Huff Construction on solar and PG&E. We have divert food diversion, and we have City of Modesto on recycling. We have San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District for air. I'm missing one. I'm trying really hard to see in my head all those different logos. They'll all be presenting. We're doing this at the Century on the 22nd. We'll have vendors, 8 to 10 or 12, sharing information for about 45 minutes. We'll do 45 minutes of program. We have lunch buffet, another 45 minutes. And we're going to share a lot of great information that day. So if anyone's interested in sponsoring or attending, let us know. Registrations are open. And I would just like to personally invite you all to our regional chamber mixer. This is San Joaquin and Stanislaus County. So far, the chamber signed up to participate out at Del Rio, our series, Lodi, Manteca, Oakdale, Riverbank, Tracy, Turlock, and Patterson Wesley has added since this. And
Is the Latino chamber?
not yet, they have a scheduling conflict. I think Patterson Wesley is the only one missing at the moment. But we have 2 or 3 others that are still trying to align. I am co-hosting this with Kaiser Permanente. Food's going to be great. The venue's going to be great. So this is free, open to everyone, chamber member or not, both counties. So love to have you guys come out if you'd like to.
Great. Real quick, Michael, you want to talk about GRC next week? Who's going to be here? And
Yeah, so I'm actually.
I know you're not going to be here,
Yeah,
but
I'll be out of the country for a few weeks, but Don Blinds is gonna facilitate our government relations council meeting. I've been chair for a number of years now, but I have a conflict. So Tuolumne River Trust will be coming in to talk about their programs and what they have going on. They're doing important work, obviously, in our community. They receive lots of grant money and they're putting into great work. Tom, you mentioned that the Farm Bureau writes lots of letters. We do too here at the chamber. So if you need any support, please let us know. Shoot those over to us via email. I'll also say that when you mentioned Director Keating coming in with MID board just a week ago or so ago, Dana Pereira was here. She mentioned likely opposing all 3 bills. That's not a secret. You can go back on the tape. So please let us know how you can support you folks with that. You have something?
Yeah, I did. Just a few things. I'm happy to, so Ed Garcia, Housing Urban Development for the City of Modesto, happy to connect you with the Stanislaus 2030 initiative. The city's working hand in glove there. The other thing that I'll mention that you may be aware of, the state's lumped Stanislaus County with Merced and San Joaquin counties for a new program called the Community Economic Resilience Fund. Very similar to the Stanislaus 2030 initiative, but what it's doing and what it's identifying, it's key industries that are ripe for additional investment from the state. I think it'd be important for you all to be involved with that. I think it's going to be a critical process, especially with the future of our industry here in the northern San Joaquin Valley. And lastly, I'll also mention that I am the project manager for the general plan update for the city of Modesto. It's in very early stages, but we're about to launch our stakeholder and public engagement. We're not there yet, but we will be starting that soon. And we'd love to meet with you. We'd love to sit down and talk. Happy to get your contact information so we can set that up. And I'm super late for a 1 o'clock meeting.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I just say one thing, I said this, and then before all of us do. I'm personally disappointed that the ag wagon, what's the right name?
The mobile classroom.
Yeah, National Ag Science Center.
I'm really disappointed that it looks like it's failing. Okay? And I can't believe that there isn't more support for that from either industry or someone, because they do such great training for the kids in our schools. And I happen to also be on the Stanislaus Partners in Education Board, which we look for things like that. Now, we don't have enough funding to help fund that, but I think between the chamber, the Farm Bureau, and others that we should look at how can we rescue that before it's gone. And it's going to be gone pretty quick because they've been doing that for quite a while.
The National Ag Science Center, who owns that program, they're officially closed at the end of this month.
I understand that, but what I'm saying
Where's
is
the, where's the,
find out how we can resurrect.
Yeah.
And I know that it's all financial.
I think they're having conversations with MJC
Yeah.
Foundation at this time.
All right, so we
That's
need
fine.
to wrap up here. I'll just say August 2nd, same day, Wednesday, you guys are all invited to. Opportunity Stanislaus, Dave White will be here to give us an update on what's going on with them and their next level and report on their activities, goals, and what's to come. So, great, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Stanislaus Farm Bureau.